Hi, I'm Rob. This is video 5 of the snakeskin CNC build series. It's hard to believe I've done 5 videos now in 5 weeks. It's been quite a bit of work. There might be a 6th video down the road, but it won't be next week if it happens. If I do, I will add the heads and the snare throw and the hardware and maybe do a sound check. Though I'm nervous about doing a sound check because even if the drum sounds great, but if my microphone is not great, it will sound bad, and I don't want to do a video where my drum sounds worse than it is. That would be bad marketing on my hand. So we'll see if I'll probably do one where it's finished off and get some beauty shots with all the hardware, but there might be sound, there might be not. For this video, I'm going to build the rims, and I'm doing a new technique. I'm always doing new techniques. I don't like doing the same thing over and over. So a new version of doing the rims. I'm going to break this down into 4 parts, kind of an outline for the video. Part 1, I'll make the blanks for the rim, so the solid ring it'll be carved out of. That'll be done mainly on the normal traditional CNC I have. I did a video a month or 2 ago. I did some rings. I called it camera shutter style. I think officially you might call it a bird beak, is what woodworkers might call that type of joint. It's kind of cool. It doesn't take a jig to hold it, so it's nice. It's hold itself together with a clamp. After that, I will go to the rotary CNC and cut the 3D shape of the CNC around the outside, the ring, which is, I've never done it before for a rim. I don't know if anybody's done it before for a rim. So we'll see on that one. And then I will take it back to the normal CNC to cut out the pocket that the head sits in, cut the holes through it, the tension rods go through, and do some nice finishing, round over some edges with that. And then finally, I will do the finishing process. I'm going to use Danish oil, first a light coat, then a dark coat, which kind of pulls out some character, and the carvings will show up better when there's dark oil inside that. And then I'll put a clear coat over the top of that. So that's what I'm going to talk about, and let's get started on step 1. As I mentioned before, there's multiple CNC steps for making these rings, so I'll be in and out of design software and shots of the CNC working 3 different times. So the first part is making the blanks. The drum will have 10 lugs. There'll be 10 different pieces here that wrap around. I did a video on this process before, so if you're interested at all in it, you can go to that video and look at it. Notice how each piece comes together. So as I put a strap around this and tighten it up, it pulls it against itself, and I don't need a jig for this to work for clamping, gluing. It actually is quite easy in the end, and it makes a nice shape. I like how I've added a rounded edge to that. So you'll see that rounded shape on the rims for the joint, which, again, a little prettier. After I've cut these out and glued them up, then here's a skimming toolpath. I will skim one edge to get it nice and flat, because eventually I will take that to the table saw to split this in 2, because I want these pieces, when they are together, this joint, in theory, is a little weaker, so I will split it and then rotate 2 pieces. There'll be 3 pieces total. Rotate so the joint never matches up, so it should make it stronger yet. This is what it looks like when I cut out the tool path. And I have those alignment spots so I can line up all my tabs to hold it together. I'm calling 5 of these right-handed and 5 of them left-handed, so there'll be tabs that hold these together. But when I glue it together, some tabs will be on the top, some will be on the bottom, which I use those tabs later to hold it down on the CNC for skimming and things like that. So those tabs actually, in the end, come in useful. A tab is when you cut it out. Let's run that tool path. The tabs are how it holds things together so it doesn't come off the table bed. And like I say, half these will be on the bottom and half will be on the top when I glue it together. Of course, cut those off. The tabs split down in the middle with my bandsaw. So let's take this out to the CNC machine and see that next step. When I first set this up, I was a little nervous about where to place the clamps. I was worried about the router hitting the clamps and, of course, things falling apart, ruining the project. So I'm actually doing 2 different tool paths. One I'm calling outside and one I'm calling inside. If you notice here that it's kind of the outside corners, and I have that clamp in the middle closest to us. When I do the next tool path, I'll move the clamps around, and the clamps will be where the cuts have already happened, so there's no chance of it hitting there. And once again, for YouTube, I am not using dust collection, so You can see a lot of chips stacking up around the project. For the glue up, I've got it laying in place there. You can see how the joints fit together. And notice how on some of these the tabs are on the top and some are on the bottom. I mentioned that earlier. That works great for a clamping spot when I put it on the CNC when I need to get one side perfectly smooth. I put glue on both sides of the joint. I don't go light. Some people probably think I'm crazy wasting glue, but again, I'd rather have a little too much glue than not enough. I've ruined projects in the past where I didn't have quite enough glue and things fell apart and there's no way to fix it. So that's my motto. And again, laid in place here, put my strap clamp out. And also those tabs, some of the bottom, some of the top, that really hold the strap in place very well. After I put the strap clamp on, I will verify it's round using a tape measure, measuring a few spots, but it wants to conform to that shape cut on the CNC, so it forces it into round anyway, almost automatically. So even though I do little tests to verify, it always works out very well. I mention this all the time, but I do not like videos of me running a table saw. The table saw intimidates me, I'm nervous about it, and I do not want to worry about getting a good shot over keeping my fingers. So here's just my basic setup with some photos. I have a tall fence that I put against my normal fence. I make sure it's a good 90 degrees, and then I will run those rims through the table saw multiple times, keep rotating a little bit, push it through, rotate more, push it through, until I get it split into two pieces. If I take my time, I get a very good finish doing it this way. I don't need to worry about planing it or anything else to get a good finish so it's ready for glue up. And speaking of glue ups, it's that time now. I'm putting plenty of glue on both sides of the rims and going to align them well. But first, check out that man glitter. You can tell I've been hard at work, and I'm sure I'm driving all the girls crazy with that man glitter. Okay, back to reality again. Let's do the glue ups. Plenty of glue. 3 pieces. The middle piece is actually beech. The outside rings are hard maple or rock maple. Lots of terms out there for it. It's actually got some heartwood in it to give it more color, which a lot of people don't like, but I like to see the difference in the grains and some color differences in the rims. So I specifically wanted the heartwood in there, or country maple, some people call that one too. There's an old woodworker saying out there, you never have enough clamps, and I could probably use more clamps. I put 10 clamps around the edge there. It might be more, I didn't bother counting, but a bunch of clamps get even pressure on that. I will let it sit up overnight, and on the next day, it's time to move on to the next step. For step 2, I'm going to take this basic shape, this 10-sided or decagon, take that shape, and I'm going to take it into Design Spark, which is a 3D modeling program, and I'm going to make that a 3D file instead of right now it's just a 2D outline. It's a kind of convoluted step to do that because I can export this to a DXF file, which a lot of programs work with, but for some reason Design Spark only works with step file. So I have to export that to DXF, then take it into FreeCAD, which I can convert that DXF into a step file, then import that into Design Spark. So once I have it into Design Spark, we'll skip the whole FreeCAD process. I took that 10-sided shape and I extruded it out. I'm not going to show that whole process because I'm not very good at it. And I extruded out, then I rounded those corners on that, so it's got a rounded edge. That's important to me. And I also had to put a circle in the middle, and it's basically 1 inch from this edge here to the outside edge there. That's important when I'm working with 3D files. Usually when you cut a 3D file, the CNC goes to the edge, and then once it's done with that file, it goes down to the 0 point. Well, the problem on the rotary is that 0 point is that threaded rod in the middle. It's 8 inches down from the edge. So if I don't have that ring here, this circle, the CNC at the edge of that rim would try to drop all the way down 8 inches, and of course it doesn't have much play. It can't go that far down anyway, and it would crash into the rim also. So I will tell it to go the shape and then a little bit over and stop at that point there. So you'll never see this in the end on the drum, but of course right now I need it or else the CNC won't work. I will take this back into my 3D modeling program and I will copy it again on the reverse side. So you'll see 2 sides like that. and then I will stretch it and whatnot. So I get that same, you've heard me talk multiple times about how I get that compound radius. The more I stretch it, it'll get wider this way, but still the same depth here. Of course, I'm getting messages on my phone. So it'll round it and it'll give more of that compound shape I want. And then once that's done, I'll go one step further, and I'm going to have some designs on this edge of the rim. We'll go back and look at that now in VCarve Pro. So I've pulled that shape into VCarve Pro now, and if we look at this closely, let's go back over to the design part, the modeling part. There's actually two parts to the model right here. There's one half and the other half, where I just simply reversed it so it looks like one piece. And it is one piece in the end. There's that edge where it'll cut down this far and it'll stop that point. So when the toolpath is running, it'll start here, go around, and keep going back and forth all the way around. It takes several hours for it to get around the rim, but it's the exact shape that I want. I wanted that rounded edge on the outside. So it's got that little arc that's kind of rounded that way. And plus now, I can add some design work to it. Actually, let's go ahead and tell it to run this. We'll preview all the toolpaths, which is going to take it a second. First it does a roughing toolpath, cuts away excess. I tried doing without that, because normally when I do a 3D carve, I don't worry about roughing, because it only takes off, each pass back and forth takes about 1/100 of an inch off. But because this is 16 inches around, I was getting chatter. I'm getting a big wheel on there, and because of the physics, the torque involved, the bigger that piece I'm cutting, the more edge that bit gets when it bites. That's hard to explain if I even understand it all myself. But the more it does, the more chatter I get. So I had to do the roughing pass and then go a little slower. So this took longer than I expected, but as you can see, I've got my logo on there now. And also I put a snakeskin design around the edge. Again, snakeskin drum, I figured a snakeskin rim. It all ties together. I put a lot of thought in this to get how I wanted. In theory, I could put other things around here, other text, other designs, but for this drum, it just seemed right. Let's just see what it says, how long it should take to do these things. So just the roughing takes over an hour. The 3D pass takes almost 3 hours. Then the V-carving doesn't take long at all. In actuality, I beat that by a little bit, but not a lot. It's a long process. We could say probably 4 hours for each rim just on the rotary CNC, let alone cutting the blanks, finishing work and stuff. A lot of time goes in these rims. I'm sure I could break this time down in a production line. I could get it a little less, but no matter what I do, these are not going to be easy to make. So that's what it looks like in the end. Let's take this over to the rotary CNC and cut this out. If you look closely, you can see that the roughing toolpath has already been done. You can see those ridges along the edges. So now it's the finishing toolpath. That is a 1/4 inch ball nose. That's a Jenny Big B, actually, from my friend Cody. I've used 3 of his bits on this project so far, and the next steps will be the V-carving. That'll be his downcut V60. So shout out to Cody. I really enjoy his stuff. And another quick shout out to Dave Gatton. He helped me a lot with the Design Spark, getting that to work the way I wanted. And he also has a video series on that if you're looking to learn about Design Spark. And now we are on to the V-carving of the text. I have 2 separate toolpaths, one for the text and one for the design work. As I mentioned before, this is the downcut V60. I really like the downcut V60, and when there's intricate areas, a normal V-vet wants to pull the chips out or parts of the wood out, it chips out, whereas a downcut forces it down, and I don't get as much chipping on the edges, so I really like it for that type of tight design work. I'd mentioned previously I work in IT. Our group writes software. I primarily work databases, but my team, we are developing applications, software packages, and often the user gets tunnel vision onto one specific little feature that in the grand scheme is probably pretty small, and those crazy features make the application a lot harder to write. I'm guilty of that with these rims. I really wanted to be able to carve designs on the sides of the rim. In most situations, it's probably not that big a deal, but I tend to focus in on the little details sometimes, trying to get the snakeskin design matched to the drum, these little features that a lot of people might not even catch, but to me it's a big deal. So I spent a lot of extra time just getting those little features to work out the way I wanted. So we're back to VCarve Pro, my design software. So now we have the rim that is ready to start the finishing process. For this project, this is actually a two-sided project. So in the setup here, this is double-sided. And I can go back and forth. It has a little yellow side for the bottom and the top. So here's the basic shape, and we can go back and forth so it looks the same right now, but I will be adding the holes. Adding the holes the tension rods go through. Let's see if I can find the right tool path for that. Lug holes. And on the other side, you can see that little gray line right there. Let's flip the other side. So the tension rod has it's like a bolt. It has a head on it. The bolt head will fit inside this pocket, and this will go all the way through. I also add a V-bit that rounds over the edge. That'll cut around these edges so it smooths that edge and smooths the edge here. This outside edge is kind of just for cosmetics at this point because it's already been cut out, that shape. To flip it over, I'm worried about this hole and this hole. And I will cut a pocket or cut a hole into the bed of the CNC so that I can put a 1/4-inch bit through it and I can line up those holes again exactly right. So when even I flip it over, it should line up exactly right. It's probably easiest to show what I'm doing here by just cut out all the tool paths, preview all sides. And like I said before, it shows this outside edge being cut out, which it's not cutting that out. That's just for cosmetics. It's already cut out when I put it in the machine. So this is the top view. This pocket here is where the tension rod head will fit. And then the tension rod goes through that hole, then goes into the drum to hold everything tight into the lug. I've rounded over that edge there. I've rounded over this edge here. Let's go to the bottom now. Let's see. And this little edge right here is where the drum head will fit in that pocket, the outside edge. And for the bottom head, this is for the snare wires to go through. It'll make more sense later when we actually see on the drum. So let's head out to CNC and do this final step of CNC work. This is the bottom of the rim. That's the first thing I will be working on the CNC machine. I actually already cut the inside edge all the way through. That video did not turn out well, so we're just going to skip it. Next step is drilling the tension rod holes, go all the way through, those 10 holes. And then the final step will be cutting that inside lip. And it took multiple passes, but for time's sake, I am cutting it down to a single pass going around. And a quick cleanup with the vacuum and verify the drum head fits in that pocket well, and it does, as expected. I'm about to drill the alignment holes on the bed of the CNC. Note above that red line there, I'm typing in the manual commands to move the CNC to where the top hole is, which is 7.5 inches above center. And I'll manually turn on the CNC and go down a bit. And then I'll quickly change that 7.5 to minus 7.5, so it'll go the other direction, below the center point, 7.5. And those holes are 15 inches across, so of course, half of 15 inches is 7.5. Pretty basic math there. Move it down and drop it down. I'm using the keyboard for up and down. I have a button on my pad, you notice, where I can start the router and stop. Once we have the holes in the bed, then it's time to align the rim up to those holes. I'm just using some end mills, 1/4-inch end mills, push them through, nice and tight fit. Align those holes in the bed that I have, and it's pretty obvious when they drop in just right. And there we go. And now I'll clamp it down so it doesn't move any. And now suddenly, when I work on the top of the rim, it'll line exactly right to things I did on the bottom of the rim. Very important it lines up just right. I can't forget to take out those end mills, the alignment pins, because if I forgot, bad things would happen when we start doing real tool paths. I'll use the touch plate to set the height of the CNC so it knows where the top of that rim is. And in this tool path, I will cut the pockets that the heads of the tension rods will drop into. And another quick cleanup so I can get the dust and chips outside those pockets I just carved for the tension rods. Now I'm going to put in a V roundover bit. It has an 1/8 inch radius. When I show it off here, you'll be able to see it. I think the tip actually broke off that a little while ago, but all I'm really worried about is the roundover edge. I don't care about getting a fine, sharp point in that, so it still works fine. I eyeballed setting the Z height for that bit. It's more of an art form setting these up. I like to set a little high and then keep running again and again until it's just right, and then I'll run the whole tooth path. I didn't show all that, but you can trust me. I did multiple tests to get that height exactly how I wanted it. After rounding the edges around the pockets for the tension rods, I also ran a rounding tool path around the inside of the rim of the drum. All of the CNC work is done on the rims now. Now it's time to start the finishing process. For the rims, I'm adding a little bit of color. I'm using Watco Danish oil. I'll do one coat of the natural, which only adds a little bit of color, and then I'll add a second coat of the walnut or darker color. I want that darker color sort of absorb into the cracks, the designs, the lettering. It'll make that pop a little more, and it'll add a little bit more color to the rim, but it's more for the effects of the carvings into it. After the Danish oil has thoroughly dried, I'll put several coats of the same poly armor seal that I put on the drum. And once again, I'm really happy with the finish for that armor seal. So the rims are completed. I threw them on the drum real quick, and you can see the text on the side on the drum. The snakeskin pattern that goes around. Same thing for the bottom. Only thing needs to happen is the snare throw will go right there, and the snare butt plate will go there, and that's pretty much it. I did want to close with a few still photos of the drum. Once again, I am very happy that this came out. I'll start with the top and then work slowly down the edges, different views, different angles. The complete package came out, and one of the things that's special about this drum for me is I built pretty much everything. The shell, the rims, the lugs. I did have to buy the drum heads, the snare throw, and the butt plate. Other than that, pretty much everything is done by me. Thanks for watching, everyone. I would appreciate if you would give a like to the video and subscribe to the channel.